Okay, so first of all, we're asked to find a point on the terminal side of the given angle. And this is something that we're actually going to end up doing even in the next section. It plays a big part of that. And then we're asked to find the distance from the origin to that point. Now, for you to be able to find a point on the terminal side, there's only certain angles that I can do that with. Like, I can't just pull 67 degrees out of the air and you be able to find a point on the terminal side. It's going to have to be certain angles. Okay, so the first one that I've given you here is 315 degrees. Let's draw that off in standard position. Okay, so this is positive, so I need to rotate counterclockwise. So from here around to here is 270. So I would actually need to go another 45 degrees. Okay, so that would be the 315 degrees in standard position. Now, you're asked to find a point on the terminal side. Now, there are multiple correct answers. Of course, this is your terminal side. And like I said, there's multiple correct answers because your line here, this terminal side, is just made up of point after point after point after point. So I'm just going to mark that point right there and say that that's going to be the one that we're going to find. Because that intersects or cuts that quadrant perfectly in half is what makes this easy. Okay, so you've got to keep in mind, in order for this terminal side to cut that quadrant perfectly in half, it did, because we figured out that this is 45 and we figured out that this section is 45, so it's dead center. So to get to any point on this terminal side, however many units you go to the right, you're going to have to go down the same amount of units in order to make that happen, in order to hit this point. Now, I know I don't have tick marks here, but if I choose to go 3 this way, I'm going to have to go 3 down. If I go 5 this way, then I'm going to have to go 5 down. So that means my x value is going to the right, which is positive. My y value is coming down, which is negative. So, I mean, there's, like I said, endless amount of answers. You could say, well, it's 1, -1. It's 2, -2. It's 3, -3. And you could just keep going. You could sit here and list them all day long. If you wanted to, you could have 1/2 and -1/2. You could have a 2/3 and a -2/3. I mean, you don't have to stick to just whole numbers, but like I said, just however many units you move to the right, you have to move down the same amount. Okay, so that would be some examples that you could have as far as a point on the terminal side. Now, when it wants to know the distance from the origin to the point. Okay, so let's close this off right here. And actually what you end up with is a right triangle. And since this is cutting that quadrant perfectly in half, actually this angle in this corner is 45. This angle here would also have to be 45. But what else would let me know that this is a 45, 45, 90 triangle? And I'm going to use this point here. I have gone to the right 1 unit, and I have gone down 1 unit. Now, I'm not going to label that as being a -1 because we're just like talking about the length of that side, okay? So if I went to the right one and I've gone down 1, those two sides are the same. So that indicates right there that this is a 45, 45, 90 triangle. So if you remember your ratios, that means the distance right here from the origin to this point would have to be a square root 2. Okay, well, if these are 1s, then that means that is 1 square root 2, of course, which is just simply square root 2. Okay, so that would be the distance from the origin to the point. but that is a 45, 45, 90 triangle, so we can apply that. Okay, next one. I have 180 degrees. So again, let's draw this off in standard position. Okay, this time it's negative, so I need to rotate clockwise. So actually my terminal side is this end of my x-axis, is the negative end of my x-axis. There's the negative 180. Alright, so I have to find a point on the terminal side. So I'm just going to randomly label that point. Okay, so to get to that point, you're going to have to move to the left, which means your x value will have to be negative, but you're not moving up or down, which means your y value is going to stay at 0. So possible points you could use: negative 1, 0, negative 2, 0, negative 3, 0, and of course you could sit there all day long listing as many of those points as you wanted. So any of those would be correct answers. Now, finding the distance from the origin to the point. So if I go with, let's just say that this point that I have marked is negative 1, 0. So I want to know the distance from the origin to the point. Well, if that's located at negative 1, then that distance that I have right there is simply just 1. So that distance is 1, like this is the distance here. Okay? Alright, next. Alright, draw 60 degrees in standard position, then find B if the point 2B is on the terminal side of the 60 degrees. Okay, so this is just actually just taken, this is a combination of all the different things that we've been talking about. So if I were to draw 60 degrees in standard position, okay, so from here to here, so there's 60, so that puts 30 here. Alright, so it tells you that you have the point 2B on the terminal side. Okay, so this is X, this is Y, because that is a point. So I'm going to go 2 tick marks to the right. Now the thing is, I don't know how far up it is. I mean, that's why they're just referring to it as B, but it is my Y coordinate. So there's 1, there's 2. So I went to the right 2, but then I need to find out, what I'm trying to find out is what is the Y coordinate, okay? Now, if you close this off like I did a while ago, you end up with a right triangle. And this angle right here, remember, is 60 degrees. Well, this is a right angle, that's 90 degrees, which means this angle is 30 degrees. So what you're working with is a 30, 60, 90 triangle. Okay, so you're going to recall what we've learned about our 30, 60, 90. Well, I know the distance from here to here is 2. Okay, if you remember the ratios that we had, that is, the shortest side is A. If I want to know the value of B, that means I need to know how far up I need to go. Like this is the side that we're looking for, our Y value that they're referring to as B. Well, what I gave you for this side that's opposite the 60 degree angle is A square root 3. So we've just discovered A is 2. So this, what they're referring to as B, which is the same thing as your Y coordinate, would have to have a value of 2 square root 3.